So tonight I went through the rosters of teams, and I said, okay, which teams need to win now? And there's two things I looked at here. It was the age of core players combined with how many young guys are coming up that have shown that they can step in. So if you're saying, well, why not this team? And you're thinking about a team that's got some older players, odds are they've got a core that's going to be able to step in. That's Tampa is an example of that. And there's no insult meant by teams here. It's just these are the teams that I honestly think at the trade deadline are going to be looking for the rentals, are going to be looking for the guys because they feel like they can win, or in one case, they have to sell. And they're going to have to sell hard because, yeah, they got a lot going on. Okay, win now, and I'm going to do this in alphabetical order. The Anaheim Ducks. Bieksa, Getzlaf, Kessler, and Perry are all over 30 years old. Kessler's having a career year. Perry's playing better. Getzlaf's look good, and Bieksa is not embarrassing himself right now. Bieksa's playing his game. He's not the player he once was. I acknowledge that. I think any Canuck fan would acknowledge when he left Vancouver he wasn't the player he used to be. But Getzlaf is, or Bieksa is a decent number 5 option on a good team. Getzlaf, Kessler, and Perry have all shown signs in the last few years that their peak scoring is probably over with. And Kessler is showing that he's kind of resurrected himself offensively. The other two, not so much. I don't think Perry ever scores anywhere near 50 again. And I think Getzlaf, I don't know. I don't know how much further south his production can go before we start talking about him as a trade candidate. But I don't think it'll take much longer. Second on the list, I have Boston. This is part of the reason why Claude Julien was fired. The Boston Bruins. Here, sweetie. Here's the games you want.
Thank you.
No problem. I know it was bugging you.
Yeah.
The Bruins list is Backes, Bergeron, Chara, Krejci. Krejci's only 30, but I put him on the list because his body's pretty beat up. And John Michael Lyles. And I don't see Boston's young guys as necessarily being capable of keeping them up at a level where they're contenders. So Boston needs to do something, and that's why Julien got fired. Because their payroll's always been up near the top, and in terms of being able to add or rent players, I don't know that that's an option for Boston. Tuukka Rask's also turning 30 pretty quick here, and goalies last longer, and there's goalies I have on this list, so don't get mad when you hear a goalie's name. It's just players over 30, you got to kind of wonder how much further they're going to go before their play starts tailing off. So Boston, to me, is a team that's a win-now team. Chicago. And I qualified them as a contender in a video I just posted. Chicago has Campbell, Crawford, Hossa, Keith, and Seabrook. That's half their blue line is over 30 years of age. Keith is 33, Seabrook's 31, and Campbell's 37. So that's a problem. Duncan Keith is having a very good season. Brent Seabrook's a good defenseman, and it's kind of hard for a guy my age to look at Keith and Seabrook and say they're old, but they're getting into that range. And there's a lot of miles that have been put on these guys based on how many playoff series they've played. So you've played that many playoff games, that many playoff series, it starts to take a toll. I know, I've read stuff about the Islanders. And the Islanders in the 80s, having played 19 series in 4 years, that's a lot. Or no, it was 16, no, 19 series. 19 series in 4 years. I was right the first time. And it took a toll, and then by 85, they were just done. Like, it was over. And it was extra mileage put on by playing 120 playoff games. So Chicago guys have more miles on them because of all those playoff games. They need to win this year, or they need to consider figuring things out, because Kane and Taves are in their prime, but they're getting up in near that 30 range, and at that point, the scoring's going to start to tail off somewhat. I have Detroit down here. Detroit's obviously a seller. Coming into this season, they had Erickson, Green's 30, but his production has been down over the last few years. Howard, Kronwall, Nielsen, Vanek, and Zetterberg. I know Vanek is being discussed as a rental option. Nielsen, Franz Nielsen's going to be there for a while, but he's already 32. Kronwall's 35. Jimmy Howard's 32. That's why when people say, well, what about expansion? Nobody's going to touch Jimmy. There's no way Vegas touches Jimmy Howard at 32 with the injuries he's had this year. There's no chance. And Zetterberg at 35. Like, it's an expensive team. It's a veteran team, and they're going to have to figure out what they're going to do here, because I don't know how good their young guys are. Like, I know Athanasiou and Mantha both look good, but we haven't seen them in a prime role yet. And I know with Tatar and Nyquist, they look really good when they were the support players, and then when they became the key players, they kind of left us wanting a little bit. Minnesota is on the list. Koivu, Parise, Pominville, Stahl, and Suter are all over 30. Now, defensemen can usually last a little bit later, but Suter's being used so much by Minnesota right now, and in every situation, that's going to take a toll. Okay, Suter has played a lot of hockey, and he has been a warrior, and he should be in discussion for the Norris. A Norris Trophy, which probably goes to Brent Burns for the amount of points he's putting up. Defenseman points shouldn't be the number one factor, but half the time they are. If you're decent at your own end of the rink, and you put up more points than any other defenseman, you're going to get nominated for the Norris. So even though I think Suter's been a better defenseman than Brent Burns, and I'll go ahead and duck while people are throwing things at me, Suter is awesome. Ryan Suter's amazing. And I'm not cutting Burns down. It's just Suter's been awesome, but they need to win now. That's Keisha.
It is. You're right.
Rangers, because she just messaged me. Rangers are on the list here. Girardi, Klein, Lundqvist, and Nash are all over 30. Lundqvist is 34, and we're getting into a range now where Lundqvist has had a good season for his age, and I hate to put it that way, but it does start to add up. And again, Lundqvist has played so much hockey and so many high-pressure games. It takes a toll. There's only so long that a guy can be this beacon above all else and a guy who drags his team before eventually it starts to drag him down. Girardi and Klein on the blue line. I know the Rangers' blue line's been maligned a lot, and I know Brady Shea's been good, but I like Dan Girardi, and again, I'll duck while people are throwing things at me for saying it. And Mark Stahl's 29. I almost had him on this list. I thought about it because Stahl's had a lot of injuries as well over the years, and he's had a lot of pressure put on him. So the Rangers are a win now team. And I think with Vigneault, this is, he's been around for a while now in New York, and the pressure's on him to win now too. The last team I have on this list is San Jose. Burns, Marleau, Martin, Pavelski, Thornton, Ward, all over 30 years of age. And San Jose has had a fantastic feeder system for a long time. Whether it was the Worcester Sharks or now they have the San Jose Barracuda, they've always had a very good feeder system, always had very good minors. The thing is, Wingles is gone now, Nieto's gone now. It's like some of these kids that they've nurtured, they're now just letting them go. And I'm seeing this as a sign that either there's some young guys coming up I'm not aware of, or the Sharks are letting go of some of their youthful prospects or their younger players, guys who are in their mid-20s. And I remember the Ducks doing that a few years ago, and it didn't really work so well for them. The thing about Win now is this. So these guys are over 30, and I'm a guy over 40, so I'm not going to complain about them and say they're old. But in the playoffs, that youthful energy you see, the speed wins. So Pittsburgh won the Stanley Cup last year, and speed kills was the whole notion. San Jose had a lot of that going too, but a lot of it was the young kids. A lot of it was like a guy like Jonas Donskoy. Donskoy was amazing. And some of these veteran guys who played very well in last year's playoffs, just that extra year, those extra years, they add up. So for these players who I've named on that list, I'm not putting any of them down. I'm just saying, for GMs of those teams, with the exception of Detroit, those teams have to go all in at the deadline. Because expansion's coming, and it's gonna peel some players off, and you have to go all in. The teams on the list, I think that the most pressure's on them. It's going to be Chicago, because this could be the last run for the Kane Taves dynasty before they have to really think about pulling it apart. Stan Bowman's the best GM in the league, so I'm sure he'll figure it out. The pressure's on Minnesota because they can't go out in the first round again. If Minnesota goes down in the first round, everything they've done this year gets thrown out. And to some extent, there's pressure on. I would think that the third highest amount of pressure is going to be the Rangers. As I said, Lundqvist's getting older. Vigneault needs the win, and they need to make it happen. Now, Kreider, JT Miller, and Shea definitely make it easier looking at the Rangers down the road, and Buchnevich as well. So maybe Boston should be third, but that's my opinion. Let me know in the comments below which teams you think need to win right now. Like they need this. Somebody I missed that you say, no, they need to win now. Which of these teams that I named here do you think is the most likely to make a move at the deadline to win a Stanley Cup? Because of the teams I mentioned, Minnesota's definitely a contender. Chicago will be a contender because they're Chicago. So until this core is completely ripped apart, Chicago is still a contender. I don't care what happened last year's playoffs. They were written off when Arizona upset them years back, and they won a cup after that. So I'm not writing them off. And the Rangers are a contender because they went to the final not that long ago. So just let me know what you guys think. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you're just browsing your way through. And I'll talk to you all again tomorrow.